I rise today on behalf of the California Legislative Women's Caucus in support of ACR 54. And let me say what an honor it is to have so many survivors on the floor with us today. It's wonderful to have you all here. Thank you. Of the millions that perished during the Holocaust, women were subjected to some of the most inhumane treatment. Mothers were separated from their children and families, and mothers were often marched into the gas chambers with their children. And remember that at the time, most of the people who were sent to the concentration camps knew full well the fate that was going to await them. They knew that they were going to their death. Imagine being one of those women having to march into a gas chamber with your children, and then to have to watch them succumb to the gases before you too met your death. I can't think of anything more horrifying as a mother myself. Jewish and Gypsy women were often raped and tortured by Nazis and were subjected to horrific experiments that, if they survived, left them sterile and disfigured. Yesterday, members of the Jewish Caucus, and myself amongst them, had the privilege of sitting down in a round table with a group of Holocaust survivors. I got to meet a woman named Renee Firestone, who was 20 years old when, along with her parents, she was sent by cattle car to Auschwitz. Now, her 14-year-old sister was one of those who was subjected to incredibly cruel and inhumane medical experiments and then executed by the Nazis. Renee herself somehow survived miraculously, but she didn't just survive, she went on to become one of the most influential fashion designers of the 20th century. She thrived. And to me, one of the great lessons of the Holocaust is one of survival and of success after surviving. And that shows that everything that Hitler did was proven to be a great failure, a failure for his nation, a failure for those who followed him, to their great shame, a failure to Germany that still lives on. But those who survived were able to continue, rebuild, even though they were scattered throughout the world. And I think it's that survival that so many of us draw inspiration from today. You know, I want to mention, too, as a Jew, one thing that I think is not often obvious to people who are not Jewish. In my family, we have survivors in my family, and my grandfather's family, the entire family tree was wiped out. Only a few people survived. But many of us only have Judaism as the core of our identity. I only recently found out that I have family from Latvia. Those roots were wiped away for so many of us, and those family stories. My grandparents and many of their generation refused to speak about experiences that they had. We're only learning about that now from survivors who are willing to speak and who are willing to come forward and give oral histories and talk about what happened to them. Most of my family's history is lost. It's lost to time. I don't even know where in the world they come from. And we're just trying to put all of that back together again, and we'll never know most of those stories. So I personally want to thank the survivors who are giving their voices to bring that history back to life for so many of us. For people like myself, we have just those fragments to cling to. So you're giving us a gift when you share our collective history. So thank you. And I do want to just talk about the role that so many women played in saving lives in World War II and in the Holocaust, liberating prisoners, fighting for the resistance, hiding those behind, and now voicing that history. There were heroic women like Hannah Shenesh, who joined the British Army in order to rescue people. 37 Jews, including Hannah, imagine being a young girl without training, parachuting into occupied areas to free prisoners. Hannah was eventually captured and murdered by the Nazis, a fate that I'm sure that she knew she faced, but it was so important to her to save other lives that she sacrificed herself. I have a neighbor named Krista Miller, who some of you had the honor of meeting a couple of years ago when I brought her up here on Holocaust Day. Krista, her father was a prominent SS officer and Nazi. Her uncle, Klaus von Stauffenberg, was one of the engineers of the failed assassination attempt against Hitler. Krista and her family, now her parents were executed for their part in the attempt, but Krista and her family were sent to a traitors camp in the concentration camps with the children of other traitors of the Nazis. She survived to tell her story and the story of her parents. Today we pay tribute to all of those heroes and the roles that they had in one of the darkest chapters of history. We honor their sacrifice, their spirit and their strength, their perseverance and their bravery and their leadership. And we carry the light with us today as we continue to fight for equality, justice, and peace. I urge all of you to vote for ACR 54. I thank my colleague from the San Gabriel Valley for bringing this forward and for all of you for being here today. Thank you.